Let's call the meeting to order at 6:04. Let's begin with the invocation and the pledge. Our Heavenly Father, as we gather to plan our city budget, we place our trust in your divine providence and guidance. Bless our budget planning efforts so that they may lead to financial success, sustainability, and the ability to make a positive impact in the lives of our stakeholders. Grant us the wisdom and discernment to make sound financial decisions that will promote the growth and prosperity of Simonton. Guide us in setting realistic goals and targets, ensuring our budget reflects our vision and mission. Help us allocate resources wisely. We ask your blessing on all first responders and those who keep us safe at home by serving in our military branches. In your name we pray. Amen. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, item 3 is public comment. Ms. Nancy, do we have any signed up for public comment today?
Yes, Your Honor. Christy Smith would like to address council.
Of course it's me. So mine's simple. It's kind of what Lori's prayer said, but hopefully you guys could come to a unity on Christy Smith 36630 Canyon, on a unity of something that is great for everybody and to be able to continue with good things happening in our city and not into a freeze. But I wanted to present our mayor with this because your patience, because I'm here, your patience, your teaching, your leadership, and your teamwork is always first class. I don't know how you do it. So we have a little trophy for you from a lot of people in the community.
Thank you very much, Christy. Appreciate that. Okay, that's not on the agenda. We can't talk about it.
I know. Dismiss.
Thank you very much. Nancy, any other public comment?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. Item 4 is public hearing on our proposed budget. We'll open the hearing at 6:06. We're open to public comments during the hearing. If anybody has something to add or something you'd like to ask. All right, hearing none, we will close the public hearing at 6:07. Item 5A is new business budget workshop number 5. So I brought a few slides so that folks can have the broadest understanding, and if there's among us, if we have some definitions or something that we haven't already covered, let's do it now. This is kind of, it's really small. It'll be posted for everybody to see. We kind of want to go through the general revenue sources. Ad valorem tax accounts for 41% of city revenues statewide, according to a recent Texas Municipal League survey. They work in reverse proportion to property values from year to year. So when property values go up, the tax rate can go lower because the city will make the same amount of money, but lower cents per hundred. Simonton is in equal comparison. We actually were at 39% last year, and we're proposing 39 and 40% for ad valorem again this year. General revenue sources also include sales tax. Sales tax accounts for approximately 29% of city revenue statewide. The dedicated taxes, and those would be economic development type A and type B, and street maintenance, can only be used for set purposes. So the little green at the bottom in the formula see there that says a quarter plus a half plus a quarter plus 1 is a 2%, or this, you could talk about it in 2 cents since it's percent of 100 or $1, is how that's divided up. This next one tells you a little bit more about type A and B economic development and what that can be used for. They are the 1/4 and 1/2%. The road maintenance is a 1/4%. That money also is dedicated, so when those sales tax dollars come in, those are dedicated for the categories that they belong to, either road or EDC A and B. And they can't be used for other departments. Those projects have to be approved through the committees and then through city council. Also included would be franchise fees, fees from permits, and then money that you have in your reserve fund. It's based on funds set aside according to the city's investment policy and strategy guidelines. This one talks about the relationship between property taxes and the city's budget. The city may only levy property taxes in accordance with the budget. So tonight you'll hear us talk quite a bit about the tax rate because we are working on the budget and our agenda is to pass the budget for next year today. So then you pass your tax rate after you pass the budget in order to make sure it's properly funded. This answers the question about, do property taxes need to be approved by the voters? Currently, cities are required to receive voter approval if they adopt a property tax rate that exceeds certain thresholds. It's set based on the size of your city and the number of people in your population. This was altered by Senate Bill 2 in 2019. So the answer is no. There is an opportunity for council to set the tax rate without a vote. But if you meet a threshold, then you do take it to the public for a vote. You want it to be higher than what the formula will allow. And please, council, stop me if you got something that we haven't already learned about or that you have questions about. This one calls out where we are now. The voter approval rate for this year is 0.309753. The no new revenue rate, which would generate the same amount of income this year that the city earned last year through ad valorem only, is 0.297978. And the current rate for the 2023-24 tax year that we're in right now is 30 cents exactly, which is what council decided and adopted last year. Because we're a small city, we can tax at a rate up to $1.50 per 100 by state law. The city is not proposing that. We haven't ever proposed that. That's just sharing what the law is. Important to note is the tax rate can only be increased by 10% of what was collected last year. In other words, in our city, that would mean 10% of 30 cents or 3 pennies. So you could go up to 33. Are there special requirements at a meeting to oppose property taxes? I was sure to include this one because we had an error last meeting. I did. For years, we've been advised that it takes a supermajority of the quorum, which is attendees from council, and for the vote for tax rate. That is not true. You do have to have a supermajority for attendance of your council. So 4 out of 5. But you only need a simple majority, which would be 3 out of 5, to adopt a tax rate. So that's what the difference is, simple and super. This is a table reflecting the 10-year history and the average of the tax rate since it was adopted in 2014. Our average is 25.258612. You can see our lowest tax rate year was in 2021-22 when we had 0.219, or almost 22 cents. 2014 was 26 cents. And that would be our highest until we got to 2022, and council at that time took the tax rate to 44 cents to fund the comprehensive plan. Of course, then it was reduced the current fiscal year to 30 cents. This explains when the property tax must be adopted. The rates must be adopted by September 29th. The language says that you have to do it before September 30th, so the 29th would be the day prior to that. Gives you more information about the requirements for adopting. And this educates us about what happens if a city fails to adopt a property tax rate by the deadline. The good news is that cities are still entitled to a default tax rate, which is equal to the lower of either the no new revenue rate or last year's actual rate. So not adopting, can't come to an agreement, that wouldn't lead you to have, I mean, it could, but it wouldn't necessarily lead you to have no tax rate that year. You do have some options there. The city council must pass an ordinance ratifying the default tax rate before the 5th day after the default rate is established. This is what we're doing tomorrow. Public hearing is scheduled tomorrow at 6 p.m. to allow the public to give their input on the proposed tax rate. We are a low tax levy city, and as a city that proposes a rate of 50 cents per $100 of taxable value or less, and have a total tax levy of less than $500,000. Then when you have an opportunity to read it, the rest of these pages will give more detail about progress over the years and where money was spent. So we've had quite a bit of discussion in our workshops about the city's collect all this money. Are we just stockpiling it, or what are we doing with it? And there are about 5 pages here that will go through all the things that have been going on that were funded by the city. It does contain some information about our grants and the portion that the city had to fund above and beyond, and the portion that the city funded while waiting for reimbursement. Just a recap over the 10-year period. School districts remain one of the highest contributors to property tax bills, followed closely by county jurisdictions. Simonton City Council leadership and other Texas cities really must continue to exercise fiduciary responsibility so that we can help keep taxes affordable from our end when those other entities are, I'm sure, working just as hard as they possibly can with their funds as well. But when those numbers are high, it's a burden on homeowners, and we're aware of that. At the very last page, you'll see reference to the investment policy and the reserve fund with our fund balance policy, since we've talked about taking money from reserves quite a bit in workshops. If anybody has questions after you have a chance to look at it and before the meeting tomorrow, please feel free to let me know or come and speak at the meeting.
Where is that? I don't.
It's not.
We'll post it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'll post it tonight. Or maybe first thing in the morning, depending on how late we go.
Yeah. Okay.
Council, anybody have questions or comments on any topics from the slides? Okay. All right, let's move on to, I sent council 2 draft budgets this last week on Friday. Just to recap, the first 2 pages are high-level summaries. We've been using those all season. So I know it's not new, but they're not all. Sometimes you have to remember which pages roll up to which portion of the budget. So the first 2 pages are the highest level summaries. Pages 3 and 4 are income detail. 5 through 14 are fund detail, and 15 through 33 are details for EDCs and Keep Simonton Beautiful. Both the I'm going to call it the 29, the .297978 is the no new revenue version that is proposed. That's the one that would give us the same revenue that we received this year for ad valorem. This budget was $57,000 short of balancing. So you'll find income from reserves recommended in line 100-4650 under general revenue. I think that's on 3 or 4. It's on your income sources. This $57,000 would balance the budget and include all of the expenses that we forecast for zoning. So it leaves your zoning money that council has asked for in. It would take $57,000 to balance that at the .29 rate. The 21-cent version that council talked about at the last workshop. After the proposed cuts are made, the very same cuts are made in both. I think I mentioned that we took $18,500 additional dollars out of the budget in 10 different categories. That budget would be $180,800 short of balance. So this proposal includes $180,800 added to income and expense in order to retain zoning and provide a balanced budget. I would ask if council has any remarks or updates or information you'd like to share with your fellow council members about choosing the tax rate that you'd like to have. Any additional information that would be fact-based and not emotion-based at this point. All right, while you're thinking it over, as a reminder, council provided 14 cents reduced the ad valorem tax rate last year for tax relief to the residents of Simonton. We spent some reserves, $147,000 to make that happen and keep our projects moving forward. We kept the doors open. Work didn't cease here. We have been certainly not at our same pace of moving projects forward because of staffing, but we made it by using that money. But we have another big project in zoning that is a priority. We can't afford to do that and address the desperately needed road repair if we take our rate too low. So if you all have some further discussion about the rate and how we be sure and fund the projects that are important to you, now would be good. All right, I didn't receive any questions by email or other communication about the 21 and the 29 versions that I provided. Is there anything you want to discuss about that now?
I guess there's confusion on my part. I won't speak for anyone else. You've got
Okay.
the one that you gave us last week, or excuse me, on the 3rd,
The 21 cent?
the 21 cent that shows a deficit of 198.
Uh-huh.
And then the one that you gave us now, there are some differences here in your expense summaries.
Yep.
However, they're minimal. And then you show a massive increase in the other revenue source.
Mm-hmm.
So, or that's what you're saying we're having to take out of.
Reserves.
Yeah, I don't like that word.
I'm sorry.
I'm like, I don't like that word.
It's an accounting term.
But
It's
we've
not trying to
also
be-
got it listed as encumbered funds in the previous, what was?
The 180,000 was not encumbered, but it has now been added as an expense. So you will see that total, not in
It's
this.
encumbered right here, 341,000 in the original one you sent, 71, excuse me.
The 180,000 was not yet added for this, for the one from last week. So if you take that number and add 180,800, you should get the same number that you're looking at today.
And that's what I'm not getting, so that's why I was questioning it, but that's fine. Is this one that, now you see what I'm saying, what you gave us last time, 1.2, and this one is 1.2. The one that I presented. The one that you presented now at 21 cents is 1.39.
That's right. That's correct.
But this budget had the encumbered funds in it.
Okay, this had the encumbered funds that that council has previously designated, like the money that is set aside for the rest of the ARPA project and,
Right here, right here.
I'm sorry, let me get my note back over here. The bathroom, over in the garage, the money for roads that was set aside, it's encumbered now. for our roads this year that's going to carry the expense. So all of that's in encumbered. It was then, it is now. But I have additionally added the $180,800 to it for, to fund your zoning. That's why the number is larger. It was, what was it last week? 1,211,338. I'm sorry, that's the grand total. The other revenue was 371,500, right?
Now, I
On
understand,
your
but the
shortfall.
spending on this one that you gave is different from the one you gave the first time and the second time.
Yes.
So it's
So the
just,
differences between the 21-cent version I gave you last week is I've removed another $18,500 in cost. I just took it out of some items, like, for example, there's $5,000 for, that we had in the
that
budget
gives you
for,
180.72.
this one didn't have. I'll just recap the Cliff Notes version there on the amount of the money recommended from reserves. $57,000 from reserves would fund the no new revenue version, which is the .297978. The 21-cent version would require $180,800 from reserves to balance, with the exact same expense lines or different categories of expenses.
In the 21-cent version that I had presented a couple weeks back, it utilizes the encumbered funds already. So I don't understand why you wouldn't need the difference out of reserves to make that up. We've already got that, and interest income and other revenue sources that weren't listed in the original, not this one.
So any money that we earned this year, or that was more than we anticipated, or money that's not spent, like we have leftover money in the category. Let's say there's $100,000 left. I'm just making up a number. That money goes to reserves. We've made cuts in the budget for next year, anticipating that we could reduce how much would be left over. We don't want to take into more than what we need. So we've made cuts to the budget. But so the money that you would like to take that we're going to, let's call it unspent from this year, you still have to take it from reserves because it comes in and goes to the bank and we haven't used it, so it's in reserves. So if you need it to fund your budget, that's where it comes from. So we're talking about the same money, I think. But for, in the finance world, it goes to your account and then you can spend it from your account if it's not designated for something else. All right, well, let me check my agenda and make sure we do the proper order for all the things.
Are you wanting us to make our cases right now?
If you're gonna make a case to your other council members, now's the time. Because if everybody's settled on what they're gonna say already, then we'll move to a vote. But we're still on item A if you would like to.
At 21 cents, we take a risk of not generating enough revenue to cover our costs. Why would we put the city of Simonton in that situation?
The difference in those two rates in ad valorem taxes is about $123,000. So I guess I just don't understand how we're getting 180 if everything else in the budget's the same. That's my question. You said it would take maybe I'm just confused because I don't see how those, the only difference in these two budgets, unless you're going to tell me something else, is $123,000 in revenue. Am I right or wrong? And so I don't understand where we're coming up with the other numbers. And I disagree that we can't run this city with all the money we have in the bank when we do $123,000 less in property tax.
We can break the city, we can do that easily. Let's not have any taxes and let's do that. Use everything that the city has. And therefore, when we have a flood and everybody, and
Not what I said.
all hell comes tumbling down, then the residents are shit out of luck.
It's not what I said.
That's exactly what you said. You want to use the city's money to do all these wonderful projects that we have in the making. But that's, in my opinion, stupid. It's idiotic. I wouldn't do that in my own household, nor would I expect the city to do that.
We're talking about $123,000 and we have well over $2 million in the bank.
No, we don't.
Okay.
We may have that in reserves, but most of that
Call it
is
what you want.
spent.
You can name it whatever you want. It's cash in the bank.
I think it's funny how all three of y'all have a problem with the word reserves. That's exactly what it is. But, I mean, over $1 million of it is already spoken for. So we don't have over $2 million or $3 million, whatever you want to say. So what money are you going to use?
We've collected money every year that we haven't used.
You're absolutely right.
And
We've
now we
spent
can
it
use
too.
Okay, that's my comment, so I'm done.
Okay, to answer your question, Burns, about the difference, you're right that the difference in the income for ad valorem tax is $123,000.
Right.
But the 29-cent budget is not fully funded either. So
Right, I
it needs
understand. So that's how we're
$57,000.
getting that. I got
That's
you.
how you get
Got
it.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I didn't pick up on
Put the
that.
calculator on that a minute, make sure
No,
I gave you the
no,
right
I don't
answer.
need to. That makes perfect sense.
Okay. All right, do we have any further discussion on item A, on budget workshop? Okay. Item B, adoption of the budget ordinance for fiscal year 24-25. We'll consider and take action to adopt the budget ordinance number 2024-06 for fiscal year 2024-2025. Right behind your agenda, you'll find a copy of the ordinance. It will be updated to reflect whatever the budget that you approve, and then tomorrow we'll have something similar for the tax rate.
I make a motion to go with the 21-cent budget that I proposed 3 weeks ago. I have copies for everybody if you'd like
Okay.
one.
So, well, the motion needs to be on the budget that's in front of us, and that would be the 21-cent budget that the
It
city
does not need to
generated.
be on that one. That wasn't my motion. My motion was that my 21-cent budget that was proposed be inflicted in the categories that is, as it's listed.
Okay, well, before we move on with the rest of the vote, it needs to be clear what those changes are, because that's not, it's probably close, but that's not the budget that we're working with right now.
They're listed, it's balanced, and the only difference is basically in administration.
Because you have all access to everything that you need for that, but there's a difference.
Okay, which items are the different? Let's change them up right now, so we're talking about the proper thing.
I mean, you're more than welcome to have a copy. I've highlighted the
This isn't
differences.
Courtney's budget, this is the city's budget. So if we would like to take Courtney's elements and put them in the city budget, we could do that.
But it is the council's budget, not the
I'm
mayor's
pretty
budget.
Pretty sure I need a second at this point, though, to even discuss it further, I would think, because going through this line by line is different than going through this line by line, because this is what you first gave us, not what you gave us tonight.
Correct, it's been updated at the council's request repeatedly.
Right, but again, the difference is, to Burns's point, 123,000. This is a balanced proposed budget that was proposed 3 weeks ago. It includes zoning, it includes roads, it has some minor cuts here and there throughout
You were given
different
this
technologies.
information on Friday, so if you wanted to propose your
I proposed this 3
budget,
weeks ago.
then you should have updated your budget to reflect what is here.
All right, we're going to take a pause and consult with our legal counsel. It is 6:35. All right, 6:49. We will keep with the regular order of business. Councilmember Cox has a motion on the table to, say again, adopt a 21-cent version that she's prepared versus the one the city has prepared. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, so in further discussion, Courtney, you present your budget.
Very quickly, the main difference, just to keep it top line and very simple, is the main difference is in this budget, it is balanced to the original numbers that you utilized. And I'm basically saying, we're not taking the money out of reserves. It will remain in reserves, so that's the difference in your 341 and your 552 that you have presented on yours. The main difference is that the money will stay in reserves. We've cut some categories very minutely, and if they need to be revisited throughout the year, if we decide to hire a different administrator or whatever the case may be, that can be adjusted when it's given to council.
Okay, so are you not going to go through and point out which categories you cut?
It's
Are you saying that
it's minimal, and it is noted here. It's the difference in
Do
some.
you want to, I'm so sorry for interrupting you. Do you want to pass that out to council since you're presenting your budget right now?
I'm sorry. You're the only one that doesn't have a copy, I think. Nancy, I have a copy if you need one, Miss Nancy.
So you
Actually,
already
made me
have a
a
copy?
Is it?
There was one.
I utilized the exact same numbers, so it's very minimal, just differences in some technology brackets. The main difference is going to be in your administration budget of of 230, 800 to 120, and then that drops your payroll taxes and things like that.
Okay, if you
Again,
could hold right there. So your recommendation is to defund the city administrator position
No,
in
ma'am.
order to, that's what you're doing if you take it out right now.
I'm taking it out right now, simply saying we're not putting it in this budget to make this budget balanced. The money will remain in reserves, and when you decide to bring that back to council, we can revisit it then and adjust the budget then.
That's not how a budget works.
That is exactly how a budget works.
That is not.
Okay, well,
No.
I'm sorry for that, but go ahead and finish presenting. So your key
So
item
that's your
is
main
100 and-
difference. That's your main
Tell me what
difference.
page number, please. Sorry, thank you.
It's the very second page. It's the very second page. It changes it right there under payroll.
Line 100-10-5200.
Yes. And then
So
the
you're-
other changes are,
I'm sorry, I'm going to slow down for me to capture it. Is that a problem? Nope. So we're going to remove $110,800. Is that right? Because you've got an increase,
Mhm.
decrease column
Mhm.
for city admin.
It's just
Okay, and then payroll taxes to go with it. And what else is adjusted because of that?
You've got an additional about $60,000 worth of minute changes.
Well,
from-
$60,000 isn't minute, if you don't
Well,
mind.
from
So walk me through it,
59,
would
so
you?
on your accounting and audit fees, you've got $59,000 here is what was in your working.
Mhm.
But that was actually increased 40% or 40,000, so that one's an increase. Then you've got an increase for attorney's fees. We decreased things like,
Okay. I'm so sorry, Courtney, but I'm still on the audit line with you. $35,000 is encumbered from budgets that are already audits that are already being completed. So you're gonna leave $5,000.
I left the number the same. It increased it from last year.
I'm sorry, I'm
It's
looking at
easier
your
to look at the
increased
negatives than it is to see the differences.
So you're proposing $59,000
That's what you
total
proposed.
in the working?
That's what you proposed, yes,
Okay, you
ma'am.
brought it up a moment ago, so I'm trying to follow what you're saying. Then tell me again the next one.
If you go down to see the negatives, you'll see a negative 1,500 in that category and apparel and promotion because it is listed in another category. The $1,000 for
Well, it
notice.
rolls up. There's really only one, but it rolls up into that. So you want to take all that to zero for EDCs?
This one is not, you'll see the differences. Then
I know.
$1,000 in notice of public hearing because you also have it up here and listed in legal notices. And that's the same type of expense.
But it's not the same department though.
It's
Okay,
coming
so
out of
we-
the same
Same
administration bucket. And then, again, minimal differences, and you've got technology listed in every category possible, so I looked at 3,500
So who
in
is the we that prepared it, honestly?
me and my computer and my glasses at this point. I went through I went through your numbers, and I utilized your numbers to just see where we could tighten that belt. just
You and your
because
computer
it's
and your glasses is a we?
Well, we would be me and you, because I used your numbers.
So
to
you're
begin with.
taking notary fees to zero, right? That's the top of the page before emergency management.
Yes. Because you've got $2,500 listed in miscellaneous. We didn't have any miscellaneous last year.
I'm really sorry. How does that go with notary fee?
But we had them listed in notary fees last year and not miscellaneous. We didn't have any miscellaneous buckets last year.
I think we retained one and it rolls up from emergency. But I'm just noting, you taking $300 from.
Yeah, it's a $300
notary.
difference there. And then if you go down, you can see $3,500, $1,500, $1,000 here.
Okay, well, let's call it out for everybody to understand what we're talking about.
It's mainly
$3,500.
duplicate accounts. It's mainly duplicate accounts.
There are
You've
no
got-
duplicates.
Yes, there are
That's the
plenty.
thing.
There are $3,500 in technology, in emergency management, a $1,500 difference in travel and training, and $1,000 in, again, miscellaneous in emergency management, because underneath that, it's also listed again in public safety. So I changed the amount in the public
Public
safety.
safety and emergency management are not the same. by the way.
So, can I ask a question on that? So we're gonna remove the technology funding for that emergency management department group, however you wanna state it. You're defunding that technology for that department and any kind of training or travel that's required.
Only because that department did not present the council with a budget,
They don't
No,
present a
it's
separate
part of
one,
the-
like
they should.
EDCs.
according to Phil, they should, absolutely.
Okay, well, I don't know what your conversation with Phil is, but if you can tell us.
Computers, the.
You asked for explanation, so I just-
the- Everything that's needed to be able to submit the forms, to get equipment here, to order everything, the computers, the networking.
But when we do have an emergency, everybody brings their own.
No, they do
No,
not.
they
You
don't.
cannot get into the system with your own equipment. You have to use EDC equipment that's tied to the accounts. It's the only
And we
ones that will
don't.
work.
And we don't have that already.
They're outdated.
How outdated?
I'd have to look into exactly how outdated, but at this point, they won't
More than
connect.
just 8 years. We've got the date for
Okay.
each piece, but we have a few
Like
that
half
are
of
not
them,
working.
and half of them won't even boot up.
Anyway, travel and training, just for that category, includes like when members take 3 days off of work and we pay for them to at least go, to where the live person is training is being held. If they do it by remote, then that doesn't apply. But taking that to zero, that means that we come back over and over during the year and say, we need to spend $1,000 and you're gonna take it from somewhere else.
Not necessarily.
Appropriate.
This budget was
so much. I feel like I've practically memorized these, but it seems like, I know last year, none of this, they were totally unused categories for last year, so must not have been any travel or training last year.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, we didn't have enough employees. You're right, there wasn't. But that's okay, this is an emergency management. Maybe it's different in another one of the buckets. So if you go down to public safety, Courtney, the technology line for $14,000, I think you said
I
you
changed that
want to take
budget.
that from 14 to 7, but we're committed to 14 for that because that is the fee for flock safety subscription.
That's also listed in EDC. You have it double listed. I went off
No,
of it.
EDC's carry a portion of
To
it.
explain myself when asked a question.
Well,
When
this is our time to question
I
because you
understand,
created your own
but
budget and dropped it on us with no
I did it
warning.
4 weeks
So-
ago, so you've had it for a bit, but you didn't.
I have not. This is the first
So-
time seeing it.
You wouldn't take it.
What I
Public
did,
safety equipment for $5,000, I do agree with that one. That is the lighted speed limit sign trailer that I was trying to tell you about earlier, so that one makes a lot of sense. We don't need that. Then on your next page, you have facilities.
the reason that I went and made the changes that I did, Lori, is because I utilized the information that you gave us, and you show 0 expenses from any of these categories. So you've got money in a bucket that's just not being spent. It's just there. So that is why I made the changes there, because if you didn't need it last year, why all of a sudden do we need it in this bucket last year, or next year? If we need it in this
And
bucket
look,
next year,
you've
we
dropped your
can.
budget here. We're going through it line by line, so don't bail out now.
I'm not bailing
We're
out,
on the
I'm
page that
explaining
says
myself.
facilities.
Just, like I said,
And under
those numbers-
facilities, you're taking technology to 0, so there will be no funding for the electronic equipment that will be in this room.
Because those monies are already.
The capital improvement, also taken to 0. Internet, taken to 0. Or am I reading that wrong? It says minus 6,700, so we're not gonna pay for internet anymore?
No,
Or
it's
is that
listed,
the wrong
it's
column?
listed in your administration category, not your facility category.
Yeah, I remember
Well,
us
see, it's
talking
in,
about this.
it's in administration because it rolls up from the category that belongs to. So if you want to
That's
take
not part
internet
of
to
the number
0,
that's here, though. It's not, you're kind of, I don't want to use the word double dipping, but it is definitely double dipping. You're
That's
putting it
why
in
I-
that category versus the other category, and then it's listed in 8 categories. So you've got ultimately about $60,000 worth of technology spends that are not coming out of one bucket, they're coming out of 4.
okay, well, okay. Internet, capital improvement, and technology all taken to 0 in facilities. Telephone taken to 0,
All right.
okay? Is that an error, or you think that's accurate?
It's
Is that
because,
the one that says facilities at the top?
we talked about this before, it's because on the council reports, the telephones are always taken out of administration. It's never been listed back here, I've looked every month.
So facilities and public works and all these budgets roll up into administration. That's why usually like a 2-page summary. You see the categories repeatedly, and that's why I was giving you the breakdown of what those pages in the budget are. Pages 3 to 4 are income, 5 to 14 are fund detail, and then 15 to 33 is EDC. So they roll up. I mean, you could go with this, but I promise you that there's a need for telephone and internet here at City Hall.
Oh, absolutely, and
So-
so it's already being, every single month, it's being taken out of administration, not
Okay.
this category.
Public safety or
It's
emergency.
never
Okay,
been
let's go
listed
back
under
to-
the 40s, it's always listed under the
Okay.
10s.
Let's go back to janitorial, that's the next line down.
Went up.
It went up because the price of cleaning went up. The $140 a week is the $7,280, and you're proposing we cut that to less than half. I'm not sure how we pay the,
No, it went up.
It was
It
$4,200
was
last year,
$4,200 and it went to
$7,280.
$7,200.
okay, I'm reading your increase
Yes,
column wrong.
yeah.
Great. Telephone, okay. Building improvements. So no additional improvement outside of the 10,500 that is budgeted for the bathroom.
No, you got a
And-
working amount of $21,000. We're looking at the wrong category. This is your working amount, this is your decrease or increase,
Okay.
so look at the negatives.
Okay.
There you go.
Equipment for facilities from 1,000 to 0.
Because you have
Okay, so then
6,000,
you got-
see up here where you have 6,000 in equipment replacement, and then you have another $1,000 down here, so I took that one out and left it up there.
So planning and zoning is the LJA 150 only, plus 5,000 for something that might be above LJA. Or we're gonna find the other 30,000 somewhere else.
No, you're way beyond the other 30. You're done. There was a $220,000 difference, mainly. That was it.
No, I mean, the 180 total needed for zoning is the other 30,000 in a different bucket.
I used your number from the original budget that you proposed.
Okay, well,
so
we've
we didn't
changed
have the
3 or 4
180
times
number.
based on council's request, so.
We were not
I'm not-
presented with a number that said 180, we were presented with a number that said 155.
Okay, we, for sure we're on Friday, but I think it was in there before that. We can double check. Okay, the overview you prepared, revenue. Ad valorem of 293, 729, 28. And the non-ad valorem to be 8. $69,831. But then we've also got $341,500 from reserves.
That's your,
And where is that going?
your encumbered numbers for your notes on your original 31-cent budget.
Okay, so you want to leave that in other revenue? What is this one about net revenue of 56 cents? And I think that's the last page.
It's just whatever's left over. I've looked
Yeah,
at this so many times.
We had the current, you had the current listed incorrectly as well, but this, on this working amount, it was the 56 cents and the difference of the.
I mean, this is your budget now, ma'am.
No, I know, but when, like you did yours to 729, so the 56 cent difference that you're talking about is that. I didn't round up, I used the exact cents. And the ad valorem. Very first line, that's the only difference there.
So you're proposing a, what do you think, is this total already without these increase and decrease columns? So if you're presenting a 1.2 million working, it already accounts for this $324,000 in the increase column?
Yep.
I'm not saying it's wrong since I haven't been able to work on this yet, but what is the $341,000 for reserves?
That is from your
Funding.
listing on the very first budget you sent to council and to the public. It's listed on the city website. You had $341,500 listed as encumbered fees that your notes list right here. Those are your notes, not mine. I just
So it's not,
scooped them over.
you're just noting it from reserves because it belongs from the general.
That's what you noted it as reserves. Or encumbered, I'm sorry. When you put this in our first one, on that 31-cent budget, you noted this amount here in,
I'm not saying the dollar amount's wrong, I just want to make sure I understand what your intention is for it.
it's on the page.
Anybody else have questions about Councilmember Cox's budget?
I do. So if we find a city administrator, let's just say March of next year, where are you gonna grab that $143,500?
Out of the reserve for not spending. It has to be approved by council.
All right, all the roads that we wanna have done, where are you gonna grab that money?
That money's already in here.
No, it's not. There is a small fraction in there. You wanna do a block of roads?
It's the exact amount that Lori had proposed to the city prior to.
Do you not understand how little that money is compared to how much road work we need to do? And yet I've heard you talk about all these people that come and talk to you about how roads need to be fixed. We can't even fix them with what we have in reserves. And you want to take from it if we should hire a city admin?
I don't want to take anything. I'm saying if we need to, we can. We don't have to take it on this particular budget, this 21 cent budget.
So screw the roads again.
No,
Yeah.
the roads and zoning is in this budget, 100%.
Well,
If
roads
we
are in
need
the
an
budget
administrator
from the
in
2023. Let's be clear though, about roads are in the budget, right, for the $200,000 that are encumbered, that council approved for the 23-24 budget. So not additional road work, but we haven't removed or lost road work that's already been requested and council sets out money for it, right?
Yep.
Any further discussion?
Can somebody please explain to me why we are going up to $75,000 for legal fees?
That's what we've been spending.
Why? Who's spending it?
Mainly the mayor.
Really?
Yeah, why don't you look at the legal fees, it has it all, if you just request it, they'll be sent to you, and you can see exactly where the money's been spent. I've looked at them. So, it's not the council spending it.
I wouldn't say it's fair to say it's not the council. Okay.
Very,
That's a portion of
it's a
it.
very small fraction of it.
Anyway, we all were hoping that legal fees would go down this year. That has not been the case. So the budget number is based on actuals.
The notary fees, is that something that we need every year? I assume
Depends on
notary
what's
fees
going
would be Nancy having hers renewed, or?
It is, but also, while we didn't have a notary, we budgeted to be prepared to pay a notary for documents that need to be done.
But,
Now that Nancy's here and she has her notary, I don't think that it's going to hurt us to take those fees out
okay,
at this point.
and we're taking out copying and printing. Okay. Oh, this is emergency
No, it's not,
management
it
only?
doesn't take out copy and printing. No, it doesn't take out at all.
So, but hold on, Courtney. I'm gonna talk about this in a manner that I know, and that's Keep Simonton Beautiful. So when we hand out flyers for each of our events, we come here to make those copies and printing and all that, because that's what our ordinance states that we are allowed to do. So, and I would be willing to bet that the emergency management group and the EDCs and all that are probably doing the same thing. And yet you want to take that out?
No, it's still the, it's.
No,
still
you
there.
can't, you have to keep
there.
office copying separate from what we do in our committees, subcommittees.
Well, the only one is Simonton, Keep Simonton Beautiful.
Emergency management?
We don't have a budget.
You actually do. It's the one I sent you on Friday. It pointed out that there's a glitch. You couldn't see it on the summary pages, but you can see it on the page 29 and 30.
Okay.
So since you all are not using the most recent is why some of these things don't match.
Notice of public
Nothing
hearings,
matches
how can we
Well,
actually
y'all, you've
reduce
made up your
that?
own with Courtney, so I guess we're gonna all match that now.
She gave this to us weeks ago. You refused to take it.
Because it's not official.
Studied it.
the items that
I took it home and
she mentioned.
studied it.
And at the last budget meeting, nobody, not a single person, reiterated that they had an idea to defund our staff. So I did not have any idea that y'all were still considering
We
that.
talked about it in our last meeting. You were
No, we did
upset
not.
about it. Yes,
We did the one before.
Going
But either way, I mean, that's what council was to do. But you will see the Keep Simonton Beautiful, just checking, that is page 29 and 30. And then, of course, their items all roll up into the master budget. Any other discussion on the budget that Courtney has presented? We have a motion and a second.
Could we have the motion repeated before we vote, please?
Did you say no?
I said yes.
Oh, I didn't vote.
I'm waiting to see if anybody else has questions or comments about it.
Emergency management and public safety are two very separate things, is that correct? And we want to get rid of all of the equipment under public safety. That's what Courtney's proposing.
When I went through and studied it, what I found was that in the total budget last year, there were over $116,000 worth of unused categories. And some of those, there was a lot in public safety, if I remember. I didn't bring my notes with me that I've written, my copious notes. But that's where you see it. They've been unused. So, and if we need something, it can come to council.
That's not how a budget works.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not. You plan for the year, not to come back to budget 86 times
No, the way
during
it's-
the year.
The way it's been done is nothing has been amended.
Have you
in the
ever worked for a
budget.
corporation?
Yes.
Have you ever worked on a budget for a corporation?
Yes.
I highly doubt it, because if you did, we
Hallmark
would not be having
cards.
this
I
discussion.
worked in marketing for Hallmark cards for many years, so you can highly doubt as much as you want.
I will, thank you.
So we have an option, we still have the option to, and we will carry this motion all the way through. We still have an option of the 21-cent budget, if that's the number, that doesn't defund the personnel or come back later to, there's a word for it, and I've been trying to think of it since we've been sitting here. No, it's in government, you, instead of amending, you, this word, and you have to, in order to, you're levying more expense. Don't worry about it, if we need it, we'll get to it. I'm not putting you on the spot, either of y'all have any further discussion about this version? All right, we have a motion and a second to adopt Councilmember Cox's version of a 21-cent budget. All in favor? I'm sorry, does it have to be a roll call? I think it has to be a roll call vote for text. Would you please?
Nay.
Councilmember Cox?
Yes.
Councilmember Haley?
Yes.
Councilmember Boudreaux?
No.
Councilmember Turner?
Yes.
All righty. I will take this version and plug it into FundView and get it ready for everyone. We have a meeting tomorrow night. Are we at 6 or 6:30 tomorrow? 6 o'clock tomorrow, that'll be our budget hearing. Our tax hearing, and then adopting the tax rate that supports this budget, and then we'll do our regular city council meeting. We're adjourning at 7:17.